Glad I got the coffee.
Welcome and welcome to Restoring Our American Republic. Thanks for listening. We're a little late this morning. Technical difficulties. This is a new thing for us, and we're working at it. We're working at it so much. Really, very much appreciate you tuning in. In this particular broadcast, I'm going to be discussing our First Amendment rights and how they're being violated by both sides of the aisle. I think the main reason I want to do that is because even though President Trump is doing a really great job restoring those, I think it's important that we understand the progression of how we lost them in the first place. And as I mentioned in our first webcast, it's Christianity that actually separated God from government, and government hasn't been happy about that ever since. See, what we're experiencing these days is the reunion of God and government with the takeover of what is moral or immoral determined by government. If you're against the killing of the unborn, you're evil. If you believe marriage is between a man and a woman, you're evil. And if you believe nobody can enter this country illegally and not be a criminal for doing so, you are evil. This is the government telling you what to think and believe and what is morally right or morally wrong. Our First Amendment rights begin with the freedom of religion, which is the right to think and believe what you personally think and believe. So when government tells you what and how to believe, you have lost your First Amendment right. And once that's gone, the rest will follow. Because they're attacking on our freedoms in every other place. Freedom without natural law, the laws of nature and nature's God, is unsustainable. Which brings me to the second of our First Amendment rights, the freedom of speech. We've just experienced the greatest assault on this freedom ever on we the people by our government. Not the biggest assault of any government. You can see in the communist countries of Russia, China, North Korea, and the list goes on, the ability of the average citizen to say what they truly believe is simply not there. The reunion of God and government by the left has only begun to assault your freedoms here in America. So let's take a quick look at our third First Amendment right, freedom of the press. We have been barraged with evidence that the mainstream media has been bought out by our government. I'm not talking about the Democrats only. The Republicans are very much to blame. Not every Republican, but more than enough of them. Shutting down podcasts the government doesn't agree with, deplatforming, debanking those with a voice they disagree with. That's 3 now of our 5 First Amendment rights. But it doesn't stop there. Are you getting a little bit of an education, hopefully? Maybe you can beat me to the punch. Our 4th First Amendment right? Well, right. The right to peaceably assemble. That freedom was attacked during COVID as well. But that's not the only place this freedom has been and continues to be assaulted. As any J6er you can ask them. Even the new Republican Party rules of Florida assault this right through its sister, freedom of association. The reality is that this right is being attacked and it's unconstitutional. Try to peaceably assemble in front of an abortion clinic. Look, either you have that right and it must be exercised peaceably, or you don't. Either everyone can peaceably assemble or none of us can. We're talking about what freedom is, and as Noah Webster, one of our founding fathers, defined freedom as it's the freedom to do what's right. And finally, the 5th of our First Amendment rights is also under attack, to petition the government for a redress of grievances. We, the people, have been complaining about voter rolls for decades. Here in Florida, the Supervisor of Elections Association is lobbying for a bill that would make it illegal to question any election workers, including and especially the Supervisor of Election. We can't have full transparency of our election management because, they say, we should just trust them. And the January 6th rally was a statement of grievance because of the many illegal activities done by state election commissions in plain sight. The total complicity of the government having being the actual perpetrators of the violence on January 6th is now obvious, and the proof is in the many videos that have previously not been allowed as evidence. The complicity of our court system in convicting every person the government rounded up, the statement of the judges saying they must not allow anything like this to ever happen again. So you see, the judges themselves say that we cannot petition the government for a redress of our grievances. Some of this is a bit old news. June, you want to talk about some things going on in the supervisor election too. Let's kind of bring us up to date. There we go. There you are, June.
Good morning. Yes, thank you for that, Chuck. I really appreciate what you said, especially the part with Republicans being part of the problem too. They're throttling our rights and not conserving the way conservatives are supposed to. And one of the ways I see this in Lake County is what's happening with our supervisor of elections right now in getting a secondary location to house his many, many machines that he keeps buying every year. Now, the grassroots and the people of Lake County have made it abundantly clear that we want hand counting. We want elections that are transparent. We have been working very hard for the last 4 years to try to educate our elected officials. We have talked with the county commission. We have talked with the sheriff. We have talked with anybody and everybody. So everyone knows the situation that's going on in Lake County, and it really does transfer across Florida as well. But touching on kind of what Mike was saying last week about how sometimes when elected officials get into office, they kind of change their stripes for whatever reason. And I don't believe necessarily this is that situation as much as so far as they're just being beaten down basically by berating over and over and over to get something. Our supervisor of elections wanted a brand new building, even though he just recently, 5 or 6 years ago, got a brand new building, and it was refurbed just for him, millions and millions of dollars. But since then, every year he's going to the county commission saying, I need bigger, 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 because he keeps buying more and more electronics. And we don't want electronics. We want hand counting. We want the mandate that the people voted for and Donald Trump is requesting. And so what happened is he went again in front of the county commission, and they all voted except for Anthony Sambatini, who said no to get another building. He is going into the Joann Fabric store, which is closing, and they will have to go in there and rehab it for millions of dollars so that he can have more storage space for his electronic machinery. Now, to me, I'm like, why aren't they listening to us? We don't want more machines. We don't think he needs more space, because if he just got rid of all those machines and went to the hand counting like we requested, the problem would be solved, and we wouldn't have to pay all this money for renting, storing, and taking care of these machines that don't give us confidence at all in our elections. And may I kind of remind you a little of the things that we have found in Lake County that requires our skepticism in Lake County elections specifically. We had the Red Belly Road situation where a street changed names, vote by mail ballots were requested and then voted on, and then the name changed back to the original address, all unbeknownst to the actual people that live on that street. Then there was the voter information card scandal when the district precinct changes were done, and he had to send voter information cards to every single person in this county. There was over 20,000 that came back undeliverable. And instead of, you know, documenting those undeliverables, he allowed vote by mail ballots to be requested from those addresses. And there was actually over 1,100 that were cast from undeliverable addresses that USPS says aren't there. And then there was the 14,000 voters that our election integrity group had gone to him with in 2021, I believe it was, and said, we have 14,000 that we want you to take a look at because we think they might be ineligible to be on the rolls. And Supervisor Hayes called us a liar. He defamed us and went on shows in the newspaper and said that we were just a bunch of wackadoodles. And next year, SB 7050 was put in place by our legislators, which required him to clean his rolls. And within a year, he took off over 90,000 voters in Lake County alone, which he made inactive or removed completely. One of those was a gentleman that was on the roll for 33 years, never voted. And yet he was made inactive. He wasn't even removed. He was just made inactive. So there's a lot of things to be worried about in Lake County. So I don't understand how our commissioners could just carte blanche say, yeah, we'll give you several $1,000,000 or $10 million, whatever you need to house these machines that we know are corrupt. I don't understand it. I don't like it. And I think citizens need to know what's going on.
Well, thank you for that. Let me bring in my friend Mike Levine from Glass House Media. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Chuck. And, it's amazing. I'm listening to June just touch on these atrocities that are happening right here in Lake County. And I'm just getting, of course, whenever I hear these things, my brain goes to another subject. But, June mentioned that after SB 7050 was passed, that the supervisor election removed 90,000 voters from the voter rolls, yet the supervisor of elections needs more storage space for scanners and tabulators. Well, the number of actual voters is going down. He's counting fewer votes. So why is it he needs a new building? I mean, it just makes absolutely no sense, right? So then I'll also want to get to June's point about the county commissioners getting beat down. Well, you know what? When you're in politics, you have to expect that special interests are going to try to beat you down. So for me, if the supervisor of elections come to me 3 or 4 times asking me for a new building, he doesn't get a spot on the agenda. Tell me, like, for example, I'm an advocate that's when you talk about freedom of speech, Chuck, your subject matter, right? Then I personally believe that all special interests should be required to publicize their legislative agenda, as they're hiring lobbyists to go lobby the government, but they should be required to publish their legislative priorities in every session. So, for example, if the supervisors come in front of the board 3 times asking for money for a building, he's been turned down 3 times. If I'm the chairman of the Board of County Commissioners, he doesn't get a spot on my agenda if it's the same ask or a similar ask. And these departments should communicate back and forth outside of commission meetings, right? I mean, they do all the time, obviously, hopefully they do. So when the supervisor of elections needs a new building or more space or whatever he wants, he should send me over a white paper telling me why he's been in front of us 3 times and been denied, but he still believes he has to come back again. Okay, because that's at a certain point, you just stop listening to that argument anymore, particularly when you're counting fewer, even though the population in Lake County is rising, he's counting fewer votes. So that, and Chuck, keep me on track here for the time I have available. But then you get into the lobbying, right? Because the reason this isn't happening is because the supervisors of elections are a very powerful lobby in the state of Florida. So what the supervisors are going to come back to you today, June, and say is, oh, we're just doing what the law requires. No, you're creating the law because you are constitutional officers in the 67 counties in Florida. And you have and by the way, most of us believe that you're rigging the elections and the mail-in ballots. So your legislators know that if they don't support the supervisor of elections legislative priorities, they will not be reelected because they do in fact count the votes. And, many people have said it doesn't matter who votes, it's who counts the votes. But if you don't think our legislators know that, then that's a crying shame. So I'm saying to you that the supervisor of elections lobby is very influential in Florida. And then I would be remiss to not bring to your attention that the supervisors of elections around the country meet on a national level and create their talking points and their legislative priorities. And while we're on the subject, the Secretary of State, who oversees the supervisors of elections in every state, also have national meetings where they collectively set out their legislative priorities. So at the end of the day, long story short, the Florida legislature and most of the legislatures around this country have no interest in solving this problem. Chuck, I'm going to turn this back to you because I know that I've consumed quite a bit of your podcast this morning, and I'll let you decide whether you want to turn me loose again or not.
Yes, Mike, I love it when I turn you loose, that's for sure. And I didn't know if you had anything particular you wanted to weigh in on yourself, Mike.
I'm pretty good. We have about a half an hour here, and believe me, we can spend way more than a half an hour. I just want to personally thank June for coming on. I mean, the Lake County Election Integrity and Voter Protection Coalition is they do amazing work. Small group of people, as our friend Bill Siegenthaler says, STP, SimTim people doing all the work. Well, this is 5 people, and they're doing all the work. So what they do is beyond amazing, and I am very grateful for them and other organizations like them who advance this. But I'm telling you now that we are being stonewalled by the government. And I'm most concerned about Florida, but in every state, I would suggest there could be an exception or two, but I don't know about it. You see what Mike Lindell has done, right? He's just laid his whole life on the line for this. And, I'm going to jump in that bandwagon. I pretty much laid myself out for it when I ran for the Florida House 26 seat, because this is ridiculous. And our state legislators and our executive branch, they know exactly what's going on and they refuse to fix it. And then you get, of course, our illustrious supervisor of elections, Alan Hayes, petitioning our Board of County Commissioners for more construction money so he can have storage space to store machines that we shouldn't be using in the first place. And I'll just leave it at that, Mr. Benoit. Thank you.
Yes, well, let's bring us all in for that matter. So June, you kind of had the main state comment du jour, if you will. Do you feel like you were able to give us the information, all the information? Is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
Well, just that, I could literally go on and on and on for all the different things that we have found in Lake County and across Florida. Our elections are not secure. And Mike is right. They know it. They darn well know it. The law enforcement knows it. The Election Crimes Unit, they know it. The governor knows it. The Secretary of State knows it. They all know it.
Yeah.
It's a matter of who has the will to actually do something about it. And until the citizens really are noisy enough, I think we won't see any change.
Yeah, you know, Mike, that kind of brings a little bit of a history with you and me. We went out knocking on doors together for your election, and we had a lot of people that were kind of they kind of seemed a bit oblivious to the whole idea of what a primary was. Do you recall that fiasco or what?
Well, you don't knock on 3 or 4,000 doors and not recall. Hopefully, maybe Joe Biden might, but you and I don't.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
Yeah. So of course, yeah, and it is true. You know how most people are not engaged in the civics of their communities. But what the point I really want to make right now is, Chuck, when you talk about First Amendment rights and then you steal the vote, that is the ultimate suppression, the ultimate larceny of your First Amendment rights. Okay. So that's where we're at. And this is totally the most egregious violation of First Amendment rights is stealing elections. I equate it to treason, actually. And, you know, you'd have to get into the legal definition of treason, and that's fine. You know, we can let legal scholars, rebuke me for saying that. But I'm pretty upset about it, Chuck, and I think you know that, Chuck.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, again, our constitutional definition of treason is pretty slim, and our founding fathers had a reason for that. But that doesn't change the fact that that these things are very, very destructive of our republic. And you know, one of the things that really, really annoys me is even Republicans call our government a democracy. And you know, I know as the illustrious departed Rush Limbaugh said over and over again, words mean things. And we are not a democracy. Democracies can't even exist. Democratic concepts can be implemented in viable government structures, but there's only two viable governmental structures. That is a republic or an oligarchy. Now, every aspect, I think I've talked about this before, every aspect of anything from a king or a dictator or a Marxist government or a communist government. These are all oligarchies. They're a group of people, whether or not someone pulled that group together or that group as put one of their members out there. It's top-down governance. It's the government telling the people how they're going to be governed. And that is not our government. Our government is a republic. A republic is the people telling the government how they are to be governing and how are they to be governed. And this whole aspect of our vote, our elections, is the foundation of how we tell our government how they can govern us. And the idea, as you suggested, that the voting, the act of voting is being taken from us. The whole election process seems to be very, very shady at best. Is foundational there. But I guess what I wanted to do in these last few minutes is point out the fact that it's an uninformed electorate that has gotten us here. And it's we who are informed, it's one of our, I think, important functions is to help inform an uninformed electorate. When Republicans just say, I vote Republican, well, in a primary, everybody's a Republican. So it's very, very disappointing to think that so many Republicans out there don't understand that it's their responsibility as well as their privilege to decide who is in the legislature and how these people think and act, and whether or not they are thinking and acting and legislating the will of the people. So let me bring us all back in, and we have a few minutes to wrap up. Anyone else have something they'd like to share?
I do. How about you, June? You have something
Well,
else, June?
I do. I just like to say, well, until our elections are secure and we know that who we actually check that box for is the person that's going to get that vote cast for them, then, then, I mean,
Yeah.
Okay, well let me jump in.
we
Okay,
got to
because
fix
our
these elections.
no, I'll tell you
Okay.
something, Chuck. Your legislator, when you go talk to them, and of course we do, they will stand in your face and tell you this is a republic. This is a republic. This is not a democracy. And we were voted by the voters. So now, we're going to have our way in Tallahassee because we're a republic, and we're not interested in doing anything with the elections because we're getting elected. That works for us. So because we're a republic, not a democracy, and you noisy citizens are quite annoying and would like for you to shut up because that's exactly what they're telling us. And the reason we should shut up is because we're a republic and we were able to somehow get enough votes recorded in our column to be here. So we are the law of the land, whether you like it or not. And that is the message coming from our Florida legislature and, of course, our legislative delegation here in Lake County. Point number one. The second thing I'd like to weigh in on is campaign finance, right? Because today, corporations have more influence over the elections than voters do because of campaign finance laws, which goes back to Citizens United. And on another show, we can talk about Citizens United if you want. But my point is that the Constitution of the United States, and arguably the Constitution for the state of Florida, was designed to empower humans who actually bleed, not corporations with a tax identification number. But corporations with a tax ID number are running the country, not human beings who bleed and procreate. And that's what we're talking about here. And that's what I'm saying when you go back to Chuck's monologue about First Amendment, separation of church and state, because I'm saying to you, ladies and gentlemen, that what we individually sow into this world every single day is our God. That's what our God is, what we sow into this world. And if anybody who, I personally believe that the Constitution of the United States is divinely inspired, and I'm passionately protecting it and advocating for it every moment of every day of my life, as impactful or unimpactful as that is. I'm going to die fighting this fight. And I hope everybody else is willing to continue to do what they're doing in the case of June and her amazing team, and you, Chuck, with all the work that you do. And I'm going to continue doing my little 30,000 foot hammer
There you go.
because eventually, look, whether it happens in my lifetime or not, God is going to win this war. We are
He
going to
is.
win this war.
He is. Let me bring
So
us all in.
those are
'cause
my comments, Chuck.
We're
Yeah,
about
there
ready
you
to
go.
wrap up. The only thing I'd like to share about what you said is very, very true. We are a representative republic, though, and our representatives are responsible to represent us. But and I'm sure you agree. Well, I guess we can sign off. It's been quite a little day, and we're going to be back here Thursday, hopefully at 11. We won't have our little mishap there, and we'll start right off at 11. So for my group here, June Lang, Mike Levine, and myself, thank you so much for listening.